first community call of the entire year. 2024 is 12 months, so this is month one of that. So I'm really happy to kind of bring on core Linea team members to kind of talk about all the great things that happened in 2023, as well as, questions about LXP, which recently happened. Emanuela kind of leading the charge on figuring out how do we best kind of bring our communities together, and then Declan revealing some interesting things about updates, gas, and diving a little bit deeper into the technical side. So layout of this is I'm just going to brief on the numbers, and then like Emanuela, Declan, we can kick you off so you're not sitting there like looking while I'm talking. Emma's going to come on afterwards to kind of just share all the knowledge that he has. And then at the very end, we'll pull in Declan um, and let things take away. And questions will come in as they come in. So cool. Following that agenda, I'm going to kick off your beautiful faces, and then I'll announce your name when I'm going to bring you back. Cool. Awesome. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen just to give you more of a visual on what everything looks like. Slideshow. You don't have to see all my tabs. Anyways, yes, this is a January community call. I already talked about the agenda here, so let's just say celebrate what happened in 2023. So at a glance, just kind of high level overview, our public testnet went live in March 2023. So that's when we went from being called Consensus ZK EVM to rebranding to the Linea that you know and love today. Kind of in this testnet phase, we were, what do you call it? Testing out, I guess, the network scale, figuring out all those bugs, like really also engaging with early dApp developers who joined us before we even went mainnet. Kind of marking our next thing in July 2023, where our Linea mainnet goes live. Huge engagement. We dropped over 350,000 NFTs, which is insane. And I think a really strong kind of, what do you call it? Dedication or representation of the power of L2s and what it enables us to do. I think, I mean, no, this wouldn't happen, but I don't know. There would be a deep hole in our pockets, basically, if we had done that on Ethereum, right? So really, I think the initial stress test of Linea mainnet. Moving on, kind of now that we're on mainnet, the important thing is how do we connect dApp developers to users and really kind of grow that ecosystem around, finding these early projects and making sure they're getting the feedback they need, getting the kind of creating, ecosystem ranges from everybody, right? So that's kind of Linea Entertainment Festival was one of our first activations of how do we activate on gaming? How do we, find and land and I guess evangelize this really new and useful use case that I don't think had as much attention as it does now, kind of in the course of, Ethereum's growth in Web3. And as you guys all know and love and interacted with, Linea DeFi Voyage started and kicked up in November and kind of capped off in December as part of our 2023, leading into our really exciting kind of LXP program that Emanuela helped kind of spearhead and will give more kind of clarity, because I know there's a lot of questions and we definitely want to include the community as part of all this. But anyways, just really fun numbers. This was kind of our 6-month anniversary sometime in January, I think. Basically huge onboarding over 300 dApps at this point, right? Putting all those proofs on Ethereum, 382 million saved on gas fees, which is amazing because I don't have $382 million in my pocket. But yeah, contracts deployed, a lot of developer activity coming in. So I kind of want to touch on that as well, right? So what did that look like kind of on the builder side, especially onboarding those dApps and early projects to get the feedback support that they need to kind of be successful, take their project from inception to actually growing and landing and creating meaningful use cases in Web3. Right. So we went to a lot of hackathons. If you've participated in our community calls historically, we have brought on hackathon winners to kind of showcase what they've been building, and a bunch of really interesting things. Things like Sentio, if you guys, well, I mean, if you're familiar with it, Toaster Finance, which was, I believe, part of the DeFi Voyage. All these projects came out of our interactions with hackathons, right? Um, there is an element of also onboarding developer tooling and infrastructure. So if you guys have interacted with like the account abstraction protocols, right? For example, other things like figuring out indexing and bringing data from the blockchain very quickly, projects like these, we started to also evangelize through joint educational content, right? There is also a lot of engagement there. I think that is something we want to focus on and expanding in 2024, but I can touch on that later. If you do want to see like kind of, I guess, dev infrastructure that has onboarded within 2023, check out this docs link, Linea tooling. It's there, as well as other programs that have kind of been launched. Consensus Fellowship, which was kind of I guess you could say kind of like a mini incubator for early projects to really land that personal touch in terms of nurturing their projects and growing it. And definitely like hackathons and that Linea community funneling into that ability for us to engage with something cool. I wrote Linea here. I feel like I didn't complete the sentence, but that's who we are. So, I mean, that's kind of all I have as a high level summary for 2023. I'm gonna bring in Emma because he definitely, I'll let him introduce ourselves, right? But he's really one of the powerhouses that is kind of driving where Linea is going in terms of how we best serve ecosystem initiatives. So I'm gonna pass it off to him. I guess I'll continue sharing my screen, maybe? Did I not share my screen this entire time? Oh, no.
You did
Yes?
not. You did not.
Shit. Or that's a bad That's
It's
okay.
okay.
That's
It's
okay.
okay. It's okay. I
Is it
guess
is it sharing now? No.
no. I
Oh.
think
This is
all right.
my bad. I'm so sorry. Okay, just to kind of quickly go over, this is Linea at a glance. Public testnet coming in March, ending kind of our first big voyage in November, or starting it. These are the numbers. I hope I'm sharing now. This is so embarrassing. Um, Builders, if you can remember, just watch back what I said. I explained it earlier. You can play both videos at the same time. And then this is Emma. Emma, it's your turn to shine and actually use the slide.
Hey, I don't need much slides, but yeah, it's fine. Thanks, Emily, and thanks to all the users and everybody that is connected to today's call. Your support never goes unappreciated. So this is the first thing that I wanted to tell you. And hey to everyone from the community. So yes, it was a crazy year for Linea. Honestly, and namaste to everyone. And I see somebody asking like Mangaraj. I hope it's the right pronunciation. So namaste, hello, ciao, buongiorno to anyone in any language and in any possible way. So and also agree with Rastam that Emily is awesome. So first of all, it was a crazy year for Linea, and it was a crazy year because actually what was important for us was really starting to create a vibrant community around the projects that are on Linea and around Linea itself. And I think that we succeeded with this purpose, given also what Emily said before. So something that was beside the high success and tractions of several of the dApps that are on Linea, many of these things come indeed from the community. And the idea to start understanding who from the community has been a high contributor of this Linea growth and success was the LXP program. So I guess that many of the people connected today already know what LXPs are, of course. But just as a refresher and a reminder, the LXP program is basically a program where we are issuing non-transferable SBTs, so soulbound tokens, that are meant to recognize each member's contribution to the growth of the network. These are actual tokens, meaning they are actual ERC20 tokens that you can see in your MetaMask and that end up in your MetaMask and that are directly minted by the Linea team. What are these, LXP for? As of today, the idea and also the idea of not having them transferable again is, in light of the future, it's important to actually understand who the stakeholders contributing to the network have been. So we don't want users to, just sell out their LXP. For us, it's important to understand who are the stakeholders that are empowering Linea. This is very important, especially in light of the future. So we already had done a couple of small drops. One was for an in real life event in Istanbul during Dev Connect, but actually we did a very big drop just last week when we did the biggest drop of LXP to the 450k users that participated into the DeFi Voyage and verified their humanity. Again, we don't want to dox anyone, basically. We don't want people to give out their personal data, but we want to recognize the real humans that are powering the network and give them a first class ticket, basically, to the growth of the Linea network. More drops are coming. So this 450k drop was very intense to manage as well. As you can imagine, one thing that we received from the community as a feedback was that many people, were waiting for the drop. It took a bit of time, also because we did it in small batches in order not to bloat the network and not to increase fees for the users because of this drop. More drops are coming. The entertainment festival drop is coming. The particle campaign and the Aspecta campaign drops are coming. Also, I see a question about the Polyhedra LXP. Actually, the Polyhedra campaign is not finished yet. So first of all, the campaign needs to be finished and then the drop will happen. So for inscriptions, as I was saying, yes, that's a particle campaign, and the drop will be coming soon. We are targeting for the next 2 weeks, 2/3 weeks. Another thing that is happening is that Linea Depths campaigns have started. So you might have seen beside the particle and Aspecta campaigns, there are more dApps that are coming out with their own campaigns where we give out an LXP allocation. Why is this very important? Partner dApps are the key to the growth of the ecosystem. And this is why it's very important to recognize the effort from Linea users in supporting them. Also, testnet participants will receive a drop of LXP according to the NFT that they got, according to whether it was an alpha, a beta, a gamma, or an omega. The snapshot has not been taken yet. There is still no estimated time for the snapshot to be taken. But yes, LXP will be dropped for testnet Voyages NFT as well. And we will also look for additional utilities to be attached to it. Again, it's very important that users in general understand that we know that it might be sometimes also a bit overwhelming, that there are many campaigns. You don't need to do all of them, but it's very important to recognize all the people and the users that are actually contributing to the growth of the partner dApps that are on Linea. This is super important, and we want to stress it out. Again, there is no mandatory thing, there is no mandatory campaign. You are free to use the network as much as you want. These campaigns are all for you to get involved with new dApps, basically, and also for us to understand who is actually contributing to boosting the network activity on Linea and boosting Linea dApps. Because let's always remember that a network like Linea can also be abstracted. The most important thing is that you find the dApps that you like and you use them. You become an actual user, not just somebody that watches the network, basically. So yeah, this is a bit what I had to say to all the users. I hope that I was also able to answer most of the questions. I see another one from Ivana asking about the testnet NFT. Again, LXP will be given out according to the testnet NFTs. No snapshot has been taken. No snapshot has been taken. I'm just gonna repeat it for the sake of clarity. Other thing, where can you find as a user all these campaigns or all of these things that are happening on Linea? Just go on linea.build/activations. You are going to find all the initiatives that can give out LXP or any other type of boost from Linea. And yes, so that's it.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I'm gonna give there's gonna be video lag, but I think there's a few. I'll give you like 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in terms of questions. Um.
Welcome back, Emily. Everybody's happier when you're speaking.
No, 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 no. You're the most important person. I just sit here and like facilitate things. Um. I guess feel free to answer these questions if you can right now off the top of your head, Emma. But
I just want to say something. I understand that users might be getting restless, might be getting tired, and you guys always want as much as possible in a short period of time. But what you need to understand, in my opinion, is that we are here for the long run. Linea is here as a solution to scale Ethereum in the long run. So impatience has never brought to anything good. Rather, we believe that by being patient, continuing to contribute to the network, and in general contribute to the scaling of Ethereum, it's just the best way to go and to make Web3 a better world, let's say, for everyone.
yeah, awesome. Cool. So I guess to wrap up, there's still some questions that, we will answer over time. If you have anything personal, again, remember in our Discord sits the most kind of dedicated, amazing people. Like, I don't know if their real names have been doxed, but KB, Herbst, all those things. But yeah, more information to come. Just definitely keep an eye on our socials, our blogs, and different announcements posts. That's kind of where you'll get the most accurate information. But yeah, thank you so much, Emma. I'm gonna miss you.
Thank you.
I'll kick
Thank
you
you,
off.
guys. We're gonna leave you to the next updates that are coming for you.
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
the important thing for the users.
absolutely. Okay, cool. So this is when I turn off my slides. I don't know if how does this work? Declan, nope, that didn't work. Are you
Hey.
sorry? The program really doesn't like you. But yeah, this is your time to shine. In case you guys didn't know, this is our fearless product leader, leading the scale of Ethereum, via Linea, and here's some really exciting
That sounds so
updates.
glorified.
Huh?
That sounds so like glorified,
Yeah. No, I worship you. You don't think you this is a big secret. Um yeah, but I'll let you take it away. I know like we're talking about linear changes and things like gas and there's definitely a lot of developments that are going to affect users and developers of the network in a positive way. So Declan, PM, God,
Okay.
am I allowed to say these things
Let's see
publicly?
if this God. Okay, let's see.
uh
Is that
let
working?
me I think I have
Let me go slideshow.
pull you up. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no,
Wow,
it's
nice.
all black. Oh, no, it says
Amazing.
Alpha V2.
Yeah, I'm going to go through it. Alpha V2.
It's in the corner.
Yeah. So what you'll realize is my slides aren't great, notoriously. But hey, we'll roll with it, and hopefully it kind of helps people to figure out what we're talking through. So I want to talk a little bit about an upcoming update for Linea. It's a really exciting one. It's Alpha V2. So we're currently in Alpha. This is going to be Alpha V2, so a whole new version. And there's lots of exciting things coming. So, oh, you lost that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so first thing, which actually we kind of just launched already, so we're doing things a little bit progressively, is we added a new execution client to Linea, which is Linea Bezu. Okay, so this is a new open source execution client. We used to have Linea Geth. Now we have a second one, which is Linea Bezu. And so these are just linear versions of the Ethereum clients that you get on layer 1. Okay, and this is really cool. We're actually the first ZK EVM to have multiple clients. So we have client diversity, like the elusive client diversity. Only 2, but we're adding more. And this is great because we just get more resilience, okay, more security. And although we're not decentralized the sequencer yet, when we do later this year, when we have our decentralization roadmap, we'll be able to leverage each of these different execution clients. And that's going to really add to our sort of overall security of the Linea ecosystem. But you can also sync any Ethereum client as is today to Linea if you just want to follow the chain. So not build blocks, but just follow the chain. And that's because Linea is an EVM equivalent. So we often say like EVM compatibility, EVM equivalence. And I say seriously here because many projects or rollups say they're EVM equivalent, but actually aren't. Whereas Linea literally just pick up a client and try and follow the chain and it will work. So that's really cool. And of course, multi-prover coming soon as well. So just even more sort of diversity coming down the chain. Something else that we've done is to reduce the block times. So we reduced block times to 4 seconds. We're now 3 times faster than Ethereum, which is super awesome. That means that if Linea feels 3 times faster than mainnet. And then we have one really exciting upgrade coming, which is proof aggregation and data compression. And that's just going to give us much cheaper fees. And I'll sort of go into that more in a second. And then lastly, getting ready for the blobs. So if you've heard of EIP 4844, this is an upgrade on Ethereum that's going to make it even cheaper, right? So cheap fees, then even cheaper fees. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain a little bit like how costs work on a rollup and how they work on Linea today. And then you can see like how the improvements are going to make things a lot cheaper. So yeah, why is Linea gas expensive? So that's because we have to basically pay Ethereum for the security. So to actually use it as a data availability layer. Now you can see here this sort of like big chunk, this like L1 costs, takes up the most of the total costs. Okay, so we have to verify the ZK proof. The ZK proof gives us, strong levels of security. And then we have this data availability as well. So actually making sure that the linear transaction data is available on Ethereum. And that is the big chunk of the overall cost structure. And then there's sort of an extra section here, which is the execution costs. And this is just the cost to actually store data on Linea itself as almost like a separate blockchain. And then the prover, so if you've heard of the sort of zero knowledge proofs, the zero knowledge prover is actually a cost associated with generating a proof. And so we want to consider that as well when we're thinking about the overall cost of a rollup and of Linea. Okay, so that's what it is today. What we're going to have very shortly with Alpha V2 is we're going to be enabling proof aggregation. So what we're able to do with proof aggregation is we're essentially able to fit more linear transactions in a single proof. Okay, so the cost to verify linear transactions on Ethereum aggregated over many transactions is going to drop by orders of magnitude. So that's a really exciting part of the update. But also, we have something called data compression. So we're actually the data that we take on Linea and we store on Ethereum, we're going to compress it to be as small as possible. And that's going to reduce the sort of total cost even further. And as you can see, that takes out a large chunk of the cost. So we're talking like 4x cheaper than today with this coming upgrade in terms of the cost structure. So what happens then? Well, we have this sort of proof verification cost, and we can pretty much consider this as negligible. It's like under 5% of the total cost. So we can almost like ignore it. And then later in the quarter, so like March, April time, we have EIP 4844, which is going to be another additional cost improvement on only the data availability part. So like Ethereum is going to become cheaper to store data with 4844 by roughly 90%, I would say. And so it's going to be cheaper for Linea to use that data availability layer, and that's going to be passed on for even cheaper fees for users. Okay, and this is, I see some people asking about Celestia. So this is like an alternative to Celestia. So some rollups might choose to use Celestia for their data availability, whereas Linea is choosing to use 4844 and Ethereum. Okay, and that sort of just leaves us with these 3 dimensions. So you can see overall the total cost has come down massively, which is why we're so excited about this upcoming update, because obviously that's going to reduce the fees for users of Linea. We're going to see amazing reduction in prices, which is obviously the whole point of a scaling solution. But we still have some work to do, okay? So there's still some bits here, and you can see now actually the majority of the cost is the prover. And this is really interesting because, people talk about having, better provers, faster provers, cheaper provers. And that's obviously a big value proposition of Linea, as you put a lot of energy and resources into our technology, into our ZK tech. So this is why after 4844, it's why you want a good prover. So all of that work that we put in the research side is going to come pay into fruition, because we can optimize the prover and further squeeze down the cost for Linea. So yes, sort of summarize it all up. Very exciting upgrade coming. We're going to significantly reduce the costs, which means cheaper gas fees for Linea users very shortly. And then because we've got a lot of energy focused on the prover, on the ZK tech, throughout the year, we're just going to see even cheaper fees for Linea. So we're finally starting to see these scaling solutions really, come into their end game. And that's it.
Awesome. Cool. I think a few questions maybe that came through just to reiterate, right? Like the top question is always like, why is Linea expensive? You had the whole thing, but you could say why again. Are you frozen? Okay, I'll just answer the question.
So it's expensive today because you still hit. Oh my god. Yeah, you go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Back. Oh,
Sorry
about that. Why is Linea expensive? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. Well, I mean, expensive relative, maybe, or pricier than you expect. Probably is the answer.
Yeah.
Or the question.
So one reason, which is Ethereum is expensive still, because it hasn't done 4844. And then second one is that we need to basically compress the data. So today we don't do any compression. And some of the other rollups that have been around for longer, if we remember, Linea is only 6 months old, so it's quite new in terms of the rollups available. And so we're implementing our data compression now, and that's what's going to reduce the fees significantly. And because we spent so long on the compression, we're hoping that the data compression on Linea is going to be better than some of the other rollups available.
Awesome. Cool. And then kind of just a generic question, Linea versus other L2s. I think that's going to perpetually come up, but
like what's the difference, or
yeah,
in particular?
It says differences and advantages of Linea and other L2s.
So the first one is that Linea uses ZK tech. Okay, and ZK tech is inherently more secure than other sort of legacy tech, optimistic rollups, because you're relying on this cryptography and not sort of like game theory crypto economics. So that's one. If you want a more secure system, for years to come to store your net worth or transact or store your identity, then ZK is going to be the way. And then secondly, as well, like Linea puts a lot of emphasis on the developers and on dApps. So we really make sure that dApps come first, and that means working with, for example, like MetaMask is also a part of the consensus to kind of help get the developers access to users, but then also providing developers with like all the support they need to like be successful, because ultimately we need more consumer applications, we need more use cases, and so we're investing a lot of energy in making it really easy for developers to kind of find their users and find product market fit. So that's the difference between Linea and some of the other ecosystems out there.
Cool. We have a question about Linea and inscriptions. I guess, do we have plans? We can talk about inscriptions on Linea.
Yeah, so there are inscriptions on Linea. today. We've had a few different types of inscriptions. They're still kind of figuring out the best way to do it. And there's even some marketplaces now. Inscriptions are quite interesting because they don't really make that much sense for like a layer 2. So what they do is they actually use a little amount of gas, but a lot of cool data. So they're not really as suitable for like an EVM L2. However, what we've done is we've worked with a few different inscription partners to kind of find a way that makes sense using sort of events rather than cool data. If you're an inscriptions builder out there or looking to use inscriptions, you should go to the Linea docs and read, the page that we've created with partners around how to do them correctly on Linea. And I think that's going to become like a sort of standard across the L2 space. So yeah, definitely inscriptions are there. And I think we've come up with a pretty unique way to make them work on Linea and on layer 2.
Cool. Here's the link if you want to read more about Linea inscriptions. One of our lovely content people on Consensus posted a thing about if you want to read more in depth about 4844, which is really cool. This is fun. Is Linea a good platform for building Farmville?
Building Farmville? That's an interesting question. I think when you think of on-chain like games, and if you're going to build an on-chain version of Farmville, I would say yes, because the gas fees are going to be really cheap, as I discussed. It's going to be faster than other blockchains because we're going to be quick transactions. And then you can also leverage things like account abstraction. So on Linea, we're going to have, 4337 account abstraction, smart contract accounts. So, users won't need to sign every transaction or have a bad user experience for games. So yeah, if you want to go and build Farmville on Linea, then definitely hit me up and we'll help you get going.
I feel like my counter question is, you're still playing Farmville in 2024? I did not know it still existed. That was like a Facebook game, right? But
yeah, that was like the first big sort of like Facebook game inside.
yeah. So I guess I digress. Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can build Farmville on Forecaster.
Yeah, it's similar to Frames actually.
Yeah.
That kind of same idea, like Zynga on Facebook with Farmville. I think Frames are kind of replicating that on Farcaster, which is pretty cool to see. So more consumer apps, the better. We want to see more adoption for crypto.
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I feel like the first time I ever created a microtransaction on a mobile app, I was like, oh God, rabbit hole. I'm bankrupt. Okay. I guess I will leave 5 more seconds for any other questions. Then I'm going to jump into kind of upcoming updates on Linea, IRL stuff, Voyages, other things that you guys might be interested in. Oh, wait, I had one more question, Declan. For devs, does this new release change anything about the process, or they need a considerations?
For dApp developers, nothing will change. Like Linea will still stay exactly the same. It's still EVM equivalent. If you are a developer looking at sort of cross-chain communication, so bridging dApps or interoperability dApps, there'll be a small breaking change, which has all been included in the release notes on the documentation website. So if you are in that sort of use case, then definitely check those out. Or if you're confused or have any questions, then just hit me up on Twitter, and we can make sure that the team works with you to get that change sorted for when we do the mainnet upgrade.
Cool. Declan's Twitter is DeclanFox04. Is that what it is?
14.
14.
Close.
Okay. Yeah, it's because he was born in 2014. That's the reason.
Yes.
Linea is run by a child. Okay, cool. I think that is all we have. Just gonna, I guess, jump into Denkun, ways to meet people outside of just their face, and other things. So thank you so much for joining, Declan.
Just guys, wait.
Cool. So I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen, and head over to kind of what's looking like us next. So Alpha V2 is actually what Declan just talked about. Linea Bezu, I believe, happened in January. Just kind of reiterate on that. And if you guys have been seeing shade being thrown at client diversity, Linea doesn't suffer from that. So woohoo! Yeah, find our memes online. But anyways, kind of our next IRL activations, if you will be in town, ETH Denver is coming up at the end of February. We will be participating in the hackathon. I think we're giving like $5,000 in prizes to builders. So really exciting to see what kind of projects come out of that, as well as we'll have a booth at the actual conference. So swing by, say hello, chat with us. Kind of what Denver ends March 4th, 3rd, and then kind of kicking off a bunch of actually conferences across Asia. One of the first being ETH Vietnam. Linea is going to be there to support. So the same thing. We'll be at the conference. We are also supporting the hackathon as well. So if you're going to be building on in well, if you're based in Vietnam, basically in Hanoi, there'll be a hackathon, I think March 13th to 15th. I don't remember the dates. You can just Google East Vietnam and everything will be there. But we'll support the hackathon afterwards, and we'll also be as part of the actual conference. So that's really exciting. Kind of touching on more things, I guess. Denkun Voyages. So if you guys don't know, one of our ongoing voyages that kicked off actually the end of January, so literally happened this past weekend, is our Denkun voyage. So if you were here for the chat about EIP 4844, this is huge, not just for Linea, it's for like the entire Ethereum ecosystem. To be honest, we should probably have called this scaling Ethereum because Denkun is a little confusing if you don't know what it is. But premise being, we're running decentralized meetups across the world, empowering basically local Linea builders and community members to run meetups, essentially getting excited and nerding out about how like much this is going to shake up, the UX of interacting with, I guess, L2s. And yeah, this is actually another opportunity to earn LXP if you're going to be in town. I mean, it's just like a small kind of thing. It might be like 100 XP, I think, for actually attending. So you will have to scan in order to kind of receive it. Kind of motivations being, we really want to give the opportunity back to you guys and celebrate as a community, because it's not just like Linea is not just online, right? Like we are real people. That's kind of where Denkun Voyages sit. It will run from January all the way up until March, which is kind of the expected date where Ethereum kind of Denkun upgrade will happen. The actual kind of Linea implementation of that obviously will come afterwards. So basically, Ethereum does it, and then Linea needs to take the engineering time to use it. So the effects won't be seen immediately, obviously. So, but that's Denkun. I'm going to kind of post here again. This is the dates and locations of most of them. We're still figuring out the actual dates of some of the locations, but if you can find it, the dates are not in chronological order. I apologize for that. We will be there. Uh, you know, event link registration will probably be brought up around like at most or at least, I don't know what a month beforehand, maybe 2 weeks before. So keep an eye out on what do you call it? Keep an eye out on our Twitter. They will be on the Linea build activations page. We'll send a summary through our emails if you're hooked in to kind of our updates. But yeah, I think the last piece I put here is something called continuous learning. This is more like a hint at what's coming up. Things are being ideated, especially I think along the educational front, and really diving deep into how everything interacts, the basics and also the advanced stuff. And who knows? But keep an eye out. Again, follow us on Linea Build. And I think that's everything. Um, and I guess, are there any questions? You're real people, no way. Yes, I have been called AI before, so there's that. Uh, can you email the dates? Yes. Okay, cool. I will record that email and make sure it gets into our system. If you aren't, I guess you're not receiving updates yet, just like DM me your email and like I can get that sorted out. When Dubai, again, figuring out that date. When launch, I'm assuming you mean the Denkun upgrades. That's going to be happening sometime in March. Again, engineers need time to test and do everything. So, goal post is March, and then addressing it is going to come after that with Linea. And then what else is this? Vietnam? Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of activity in Web3 kind of stuff happening there, which is super exciting. I think seeing how global of a community it is. For someone who is starting new with Linea, what would you recommend? Oh, whoops, I did not mean to click that. For someone who is starting new with Linea, what would you recommend as resources to catch up? I think that's a really good question because it kind of comes from like two different angles, right? So if you're interested kind of in the more tech side, how the whole everything fits together, architecture, things like that. Our documentation is definitely the place to go. So docs.linea.build. If you're interested in just like quickly getting started deploying your very first smart contract, that's kind of the place to go. Otherwise, if you want to learn more about like just the launch of Linea and our journey here, kind of our live streams will be a good place where you get really a good snapshot of like Nicola, so he's the head of Linea. Shuya, who's like the head of growth. Declan will definitely be there, as well as like Joe Lubin, if you didn't know, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, who is the founder of Consensus, is kind of featured throughout that. So I would say probably the best markers would be the very first community call we ever had to cap off, kick off the exciting journey that we've taken so far. Separately, the mainnet kind of activation. So when July mainnet came through, really getting a good glimpse of, I think we did a good job of illustrating kind of MetaMask and Linea, right? So one of the guys on MetaMask also came and joined to talk a little bit about like how that symbiotic relationship works. I think for me, that's very much like a security kind of decision as well. So if you didn't know, Linea is a default network on MetaMask. I think from a user perspective, that's really strong in the sense that they don't have to click any sort of potentially malicious like ad network. Again, that's like a security perspective as well as kind of a just generally better for newer people entering, especially with self-custodial wallets. What are other good resources? I can't think of off the top of my head. I know we talk about Intro to Linea a lot as part of like a ton of our Twitter spaces. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's blog posts on our mirror. If you want to kind of get the good journey, get on our mirror. That's kind of when you'll find out about the kickoff of mainnet, the kickoff of our entertainment festival, of DeFi Voyage. There's an article there specifically about what Linea XP is, and then most recently, like FAQs about the first drop and interactions with that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different things going on. Probably a good opportunity. Thank you for the feedback. Maybe to produce something like collated, one click, everything's here. But let me continue. Let's see. Yes, really excited for Brazil. I just want to be clear with these Denkun voyages, not everyone will have a Linea team member there. I think this is more so really an opportunity to um, identify or like get feedback from people who actually live there, as well as empower users without saying like, "Hey, we have to be in your country in order for you to interact with Linea," right? Because I think that's a little unfair. Like we're primarily based in like Europe, Asia, and I'm based in US, right? But again, we're a global community. So yeah, I guess a select few cities are gonna realize that we are real people. You'll see our legs. But, not everyone will have everyone. But definitely, like, bringing in, even people kind of, like, from customer like the community team in Discord and things like that. Other questions. How many employees does Linea have? That's a really good question. I think it is hard to answer in the sense that there are a lot of people who support Linea as well as Linea core team. So I think off the top of my head, and this might be an old number, it's around 40. Maybe it's bigger. I'm not sure. Because there's an element of, right, like Linea is being bootstrapped at Consensus. So Consensus is offering its resources to kind of help kick off and nurture Linea in our early stages. So there's going to be people from like, I guess you could say Consensus teams that help support Linea. It's kind of weird because 'cause they're not necessarily on the Linea team, but they're so involved with us and so big on helping us that, they kind of also qualify as, like, a Linea team member, right? So hard question to answer. We are, I think, relatively small compared to the other L2s, which I think speaks volumes, about our team, our engineers, their ability to execute. Because I think definitely we are one of the top L2s out there, leveraging some really cool tech, using a smaller team for sure, which is pretty crazy. Um, Hello from the Philippines. Yes, absolutely. Question: do I need Ethereum to build a dApp on Linea? So I guess yes and no, kind of to answer your question, right? So Linea is an L2, which means we are, I guess, you leverage Ethereum for data availability. So in terms of building a dApp, unless you're doing something more cross-chain, you actually don't need to interact with Ethereum specifically. Right now, testnet-wise, we are still on Linea Gurley, but you need Linea Gurley ETH, which you can get through faucets on our documentation, your smart contract deployed on Linea, and you'll be using like node providers that connect specifically to Linea. So any kind of interaction with Ethereum, you don't have to do directly. Um, because like I think the main point from our point of view, right, is like Linea will settle kind of transactions on Ethereum. Like we take care of the direct kind of communication unless you're specifically working with something that requires direct communication. So maybe I think the biggest thing that you might encounter is probably the gas part. So like as part of testing and interacting with Linea and the network and things like that, because we post all of our data back to Ethereum. If Ethereum is really busy, super expensive, things like that, Linea will also experience these effects to a lesser degree. But that's kind of going to affect your development workflow, which is why, again, circling back to earlier in this video, Dencun is a really exciting update, because kind of in summary, right, the data is originally going to be posted as call data, which lives forever on Ethereum, right? But when rollups post their data to Ethereum, it's more so for validation, right? And verification. So this data doesn't need to live there forever. So Dencun, EIP 4844, is going to be creating a new type of data structure on Ethereum called blobs, where it will post it to blobs. Blobs like disappear within like X number of days. So you don't have that kind of weight carrying forward. And also adopts a completely different fee market from Ethereum. So if Ethereum's like pumping, really congested, things like that, um, the, I guess, blob data space is not going to can be individually kind of in their own market. Basically, like the intention is like they shouldn't overlap, right? So that is going to be a significant way that Ethereum is helping to reduce data availability costs across all L2s. So that's kind of when questions come into like, oh, like Celestia, Eigenlayer, or like other these kind of things. Like, there's a lot of solutions coming across from like other protocols as well as Ethereum itself. And that's what Dencun is for, just to celebrate that this is happening. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks it's cool. But yeah, where are we? Following. Um I guess, will Linea have governance? I mean, ultimately, right, Consensus is bootstrapping Linea. It is really important for us to decentralize. If you want to take a look at our roadmap, on our docs.linea.build, I think it's still there. I mean, there's like comments about like, how do we do security? How does this all fit into decentralization? Really important questions that our team super smart is thinking about. But yeah, collab between us and Anchor. I'm not familiar with this. If I had my, I mean, like what I is probably like Anchor is a node provider, right? So, in order to interact with Linea at scale or like Ethereum at scale, right, connecting with any blockchain, um, node providers exist to provide like uptime support and things like that, rather than running your DApp on your local machine to try and support the millions of people that you hope to gain. So that's going to be things like Infura, BlockPi, Anchor, things like that. I think Anchor is the node provider, right? They will be there. Uh, cool. Is Linea a good platform for enabling an AI cop to deter, deny malicious activity? I mean, I'm not too familiar with like how an AI cop would activate, but you can basically think of like I'm guessing like what do you call it? Everything about Linea, like we're you know, I think there's probably, like, a better way of saying it, but, like, the meme way or, like, self-deprecating way of referring to Linea, right, is, like, we're just block space, right? So, we are an opportunity for dApp developers to reduce execution costs. So whatever like AI cop interactions with the blockchain that would be really expensive on Ethereum itself, like Linea is basically the extra layer there to make sure any AI cop transactions that are happening is going to be cheaper and not kind of as beholden to the ups and downs of Ethereum. I think at a separate level, right? Like when I say Linea is just block space, I think there's an extra level that level of like the truth really is like Linea and other blockchains are ecosystems, right? That's why Ethereum is so popular. You have builders, you have users, you have degens, you have people who are super into the tech and really interested. It's such a wide variety of things. And I think specifically from our team right now, it's like, how do we nurture such a diverse group of people? Right? So that includes stuff like good platform for enabling an AI cop. I think you can extrapolate that to Linea. I think is a great team to work with in terms of finding areas of support. We really want to kind of hone in on how people doing like really interesting use cases like that um, can be, I guess, like amplified through our popularity. So again, I think that's really tying into, the reason for like the DeFi voyage and these different things. I think there is an element and I'm getting into like my hot takes at this point, right? Like where people talk, there's like a subset of people who have negative sentiments about like farmers or like tokens and things like that. But my personal opinion is like I think this is a fantastic opportunity and a real like way to incentivize exposing early dApps to get the feedback and I guess testing and things that they need that they can't get on their own, and facilitate those conversations between dApp developers and users to ultimately create better applications that are gonna like, take us to what we all are kind of dreaming of, which is mass adoption, right? So there's that piece. Um how does Linea ensure integrity and accuracy of the POH process across multiple chains, especially regarding the prevention of Sybil attacks and the validation of genuine user contributions? Right. So I think that's like a multi-tiered question, right? So like Linea, okay, so like first off, Linea is just a blockchain, right? When we talk about proof of humanity and things like that, and the way we've interacted with proof of humanity for our voyage campaigns, is something called Verax. So Verax is a public good we're heavily supporting. It's essentially what we call an attestation registry. So basically, anyone can go there and say like, "This happened, this happened, this happened." But you can think of it as a repository of a lot of information about different wallet addresses. Like this one has been connected to a GitHub account, or this one has been uh, like X points on Gitcoin Passport, right? And it's basically an information repository for external dApp developers to leverage that information to create stronger proofs of humanity. I think like a really compelling kind of way we do that is also through these IRL engagements, right? I think scanning in to an event is kind of the canonical, or like not canonical, the best way of proving humanity. But yeah, I think, with Verac specifically and like decisions around that, where like I guess it becomes a, got you have to, verify through multiple means, right? I think the way they did proof of humanity was like select multiple partners. There's some that are much easier to get through, and then also ones that require more steps. And I think the more kind of barriers and parameters and insurances that you put around, um, how you aggregate these attestations, is kind of the way you achieve it, right? So I think there's really a strong lean onto, again, how proof of humanity and all of this is happening is through dApp developers, right? And in order for developers to succeed, and achieve the results they want, they need the volume, of real people and civils kind of coming through so that they can basically stress test and ensure that what they're building, actually makes sense or like works. So yeah, blah 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 blah. Can you explain the technical process involved in retroactively issuing Voyage XP, including how cryptographic evidence is verified and utilized to validate past contributions accurately? I'm going to be honest, I am not involved in the actual distribution of Voyage XP. So I don't feel, what do you call it, qualified to answer that properly. I would definitely say check out our Discord, post those questions, because that's going to be a much more tighter kind of communication layer, that where you can get connected with somebody who will answer that to the appropriate degree. So again, more questions about, Void LXP, and I think especially the early testnet Voyagers questions, please funnel them to Discord. I'm really the worst person to ask because I focus more on, you could say like creating developer tools, or like facilitating those conversations at hackathons, finding builders, to elevate, and nurture and grow, the what Linea is as an ecosystem versus Linea as just pure tech, and block space. Ba 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 ba. Um, can I name a few dApps? Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, right? So, from Hackathon specifically, like on the dev tooling side, Sentio is a really cool project that came through. Toaster Finance is also an early project that's being incubated through actually our Consensus Fellowship program. Other things that are really interesting, I think, is like Tomo. So I think that's something we supported early on with regards to figuring out, how we interact in social on like Web3, because my opinion is like we have DeFi pretty locked in. I mean, there's more, right? Obviously, with like RWAs now and innovation happening in that point. But my personal standpoint, right, especially when it comes to unlocking consumer use cases, or people not focus like as deep into finance, for example, social gaming is kind of the best, like where creativity is happening, right? So Tomo is like one of the canonical examples that I have used occasionally. Is a dApp that first built on Linea. I was actually talking to the founder. I was like, what made you choose this decision? And his answer was like longevity and like the belief in success. I was like, oh, thank you so much. So there's that. Again, like I'm definitely more biased towards being able to tell you what dev tools are on there, right? So there's like Gelato, account obstruction protocols like Pimlico, Biconomy. I think like user dApps wise, I mean like DeFi is like Mendy. I would say go to linea.build/apps, I think is the thing. But you can find kind of the whole suite of ways you can interact on there. Is anybody building larger scale collaboration engines on Lydia? Many people and AIs collaborating together. I'm not entirely sure I understand that question. But In terms of like people collaborating across on Linea, I would say that's definitely one of the pieces that I'm talking about with regards to continuous learning, or what I'm calling continuous engagement, that we're formulating in January. I think there's like organic activity with regards to creating cross collaborative abilities, especially through hackathons, build-a-thons, where people are actively looking for team members. But one of the plans is like, how do we blow that up? How do we scale that? How do we make sure those people have an opportunity to create those interactions early on? So that's one of our like big plans, or like one of my big plans for really honing in and figuring out in 2024. Obviously, I want to push this as fast as possible, but East Denver and East Vietnam are coming immediately, so it's a little difficult to focus. But that is kind of a really good question. Would love to get more information. I'm horrible about answering things on LinkedIn, to be honest. Maybe like I'll try. I know it's an important platform, but I'm mostly like active on my Twitter _EMJLIN. You can direct questions to our Discord. And if you want to talk to me personally, I'm not super active on Farcaster. I've tried to figure out whether or not I want to do a meme account or a serious account. But yeah, my handle's Emily Lynn, so I got lucky. Dear CEO of Linea, there's no CEO of Linea. Yes. We are joining Bangladesh in Dhaka February 17th. Anyone is welcome. Absolutely. This is for you guys. Yeah. So I think that's all the questions we have. Really thankful for all of you guys' engagement. Um, I guess continue to see where Linea goes. This is just Jan 2024. I'm super pumped to see what happens in Jan 2025. So yeah. Okay. That is everything. I'm gonna hop off and say goodbye. So thank you guys so much for joining. And if you have any questions, Twitter, LinkedIn's not the best place for me, but Declan Fox is probably much better and responsible than I am. But yeah. Okay. See ya.